Samsaradava Nalalidaloka Tranaya Karuna Ganaganatam Samsaradava Nalalidaloka Tranaya Karuna Ganaganatam Prapta Sakalyanam Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Prapta Sakalyanam Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhya Manasura Seno Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhya Manasura Seno Romanchakam Pastru Taranga Vajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Niramarjanado Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Niramarjanado Jukta Sabhaktam Sa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Yukta Sabhakta Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Satvana Triptam Hari Bhakta Sangam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satvana Triptam Kridvaiva Trupti Vajato Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vajata Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Shiradikama Vavayora Para Madhura Leela Gunarupanamna Shiradikama Vavayora Para Pratikshana Swa Dhanalopasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Dhanalopasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Ne kunjayuno Ratikali Siddhai Jayali Bhir Yuktir Apekshaneya Ne kunjayuno Ratikali Siddhai Jayali Bhir Yuktir Apekshaneya Tatrati Daksha Otibalavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Tatratidaksha Ati Bhalavasya Vande Gurashi Sakchadharitvaina Samasta Shastrim Rukta Tathava Vyataeva Sadhavi Sakchadharitvaina Samasta Shastrim Rukta Tathava Kintu Prabodja Priyaeva tasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Kintu Prabhaya Priyaeva tasya Vande Gurashi Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasada Yasya prasadam nagati kutapi Yasya prasadam bhagavat prasadam Yasya prasadam nagati kutapi Jayam stuvam tasya yasatrin sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Jayam Tuvam Tasa Yasatri Sanyam Vande Gurashi Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Shunavadi Pachatarisha Tarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shiva Sari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Yaraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama. Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama. Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad Gita. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghuna. Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghuna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Nitai Gaura, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Pramanande, Haribo. Jai Vishnu Paraparamhansa Prabhajakacharya, Astottara Saraswati Maharaj Divine Grace, Abhocharvina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakachar Vaishnav Siramani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhara ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ji ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrindi ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय. जय परम दयाल से नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय. प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद श्रीमन गौरांग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरनावतार की जय. गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जय की जय. जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय. Brihat Midanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopna Radha Kund Samakund Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Shri Braja Bhum Vrindavan Mathur Dham ki jai. The Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai. Shri Shri Mayapur Navadvip Chakra Dham ki jai. Parama Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smasudra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagwan ki jai. श्री सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय. भक्ति सर्वविघ्न विनाशन कर श्रृंगरे भगवान की जय. जगंगा माय जमुना माय की जय. तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय. श्रीमती राधा रानी की जय. समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय. निताय गौरी प्रेमानंदी हरि बोल. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gaurang.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Lada Daine. Prahlada Lada Daine. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimho. yato yato yami tato narsimha
Jato jato jami kato nisimha.
Bahir narsimha hridaye narsimha Narasim namadim sharanam prapade Tava kara kamalavare nakam adbhuta shringam dalita hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare
Avakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare
Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare
Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare
Jayo Narasimhadev Jayo Narasimhadev Jayo Narasimhadev Jayo Narasimhadev
Jayo Nrsimhade Jayo Nrsimhade Jayo Nrsimhade Jayo Nrsimhade
Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Prahlad Maharaj
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jayo Jayo Prabhupada 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 Jayo Jayo Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
Jayo Jayo Gurudev 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 Jayo Jayo Gurudev
Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Gurudev. जय श्री भक्ति पर सर्वनाश कनिष्ठ भगवान की जय जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय और प्रमानंदे श्री वृंदायै तुलसी भाई प्रिय के सभा सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति पारे देव सत्वताय नमः वृंदायै तुलसी भाई प्रिय के सभा सत्य Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Sattvatai Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति पर देवी सतवताय नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
जितो मारा शरण लो तारा वंच पूरा न हो।
तुम्हार शरण लाओ तारा वंच पूर्ण हो।
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
तुमी कृपा करे कर तरे वृंदावनवासी।
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास।
मोराए अबेला विलास कुंजे
नयने हरिवो सदा जुगल रूपरासी।
नयने रिवो सदा जुगल रूपरासी।
ए निवेदना धारो साखीर अनुगाता कोरो।
सकीरायनो कथकारो
सेवा अधिकारा दिए कोरो निज दासी।
सेवाया Arati Karani Jadasi
दीना कृष्णा दासे कोए ए जीना मोरा होए
Krishna Das Koi Eyena Mora
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी
Sri Radha Govinda Prime Sadai Navasi
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी
Sri Radha Govinda Prime Sadai Navasi
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Jani Kani Sapapani Brahma Tari Kani Sa Kani Kani Pranasanti Pradasina Pari Pari
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahma Tari Kani Sa Kani Kani Pranasanti Pradasina Pari Pari
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Kani Sapapani Brahma Tari Kani Sa Kani Kani Pranasanti Pradasina Pari Pari
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी
Jaya Vrinda Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda
नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
Jai Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prare Devi Shatavatai Vrindaye tulasi devai priyaye kesava satya Vishnu bhakti prade devi satavatai Vrindaye tulasi devai priyaye kesava satya Vishnu bhakti prade devi satavatai Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to return to service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you his wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I dare you to make me a follower of Kavajams as a Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always sing and love Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Chaitanya Krishna Ki Jai. Om Mahavadana Krishna Prem Krishna Glory to Shri Krishna Sankirtana, who cleansed the heart with the dust like the years, and banished the fire of conditional life that created birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is a life of transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds, millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your casual devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I'm falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the Lotus feet. O my Lord, nor will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name. Or will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end the recitation of your name. O Govinda, filling your separation, I am pursuing the moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so. Even if his hand does me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, because he is my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Kastakam Ki Jai. The acting offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows: 1. Blaspheme the body that in the life of propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names the demigods, the Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and concerns of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to the imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit simple activities and strength to chant the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting
Hare Krishna
as one of the auspicious
ritualistic activities. Offering Vedas as fruit of activities or karma kanda.
9.
To instruct the faith about the glories of the holy name.
And 10.
To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for fallen conditioned souls. Vanchikalpa Durabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyebhya Pattanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pucharini Nivasesa Srimati Paskati Visatani Srimad Bhagavatam Granth Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmadyasya Yato Nivayad Itaratas Chartesva Vigyaswarat.
Janmadyasya Yatam Vayalitaratas Chartesva Vigyaswarat.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tejo Vari Madam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mesha.
Tejo Vari Madam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mesha.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva,
O my Lord, Sri Krishna, Son of
O
Vasudeva,
all-pervading personality, Godhead,
O all-pervading personality of Godhead,
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto
I
you.
meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth
I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because of the absolute truth
and the primeval cause of all
and
causes,
the primeval cause of all
of the
causes,
creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universe.
for the creation, sustenance, destruction, the manifested universe.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all
He
manifestations.
is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond
He
him.
only first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
It is the only person part of the Vedic knowledge into the heart of Brahmaji,
the original living being.
the original living
By
being.
him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation
of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
of water seen to fire, land seen on water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universes,
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature,
appear factual, although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they are
I
not.
therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternal existence in the transcendental abode,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material
I
world.
meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma Pujita Kaitruvutra
Dharma Pujita Kaitavutra,
Paramo Nimatsuranam Satam
Paramo Nimasharanam Satam,
Vedyam Vastavam Vastu
Vedyam Vastavam Astavastu,
Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam
Shivadam Taputrayomanam,
Shimad Bhagavate Mahamani Krite
Shimar Bhagavate Mahamani Krite,
Kimva Prayer Ishwaraha
Indra Parivishwaraha,
Sadyo Hridi Avarudyatetra
Sadyurudya Varudya
Krite Behi Sususa Bistakshara.
Pritibhi Shishushuvistakana,
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
rejecting all religious activities which are material
This
motivated.
Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the high truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in
The highest truth is reality, distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
truthfully, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold mystery.
Such a truth uproots the threefold.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by great sage Vyasadeva's
is
maturity.
sufficient in itself for God
It
realization.
is sufficient itself for God's realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other
As
scripture?
soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of knowledge,
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nikama kalpataror galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpatoro karitam phalam,
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam,
Lokamakad Mritatravasang,
pibata Bhagavatam rasamalayam,
Ivata Bhagavatam Rasamayam,
muhur ahorasika bhuvi bhavukaha.
Mura Hurasika Bhagavata.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Shmar
the
Bhagavatam,
mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literatures.
the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Shishukadeva Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna,
Shrambatam Swakata Krishna,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Hiryantak Stohi Bhadrani,
Hridyantastohya Bhadrani,
Vidunoti Suhitsatam.
Vidunoti Suritsatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic
or to
literatures,
hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from it directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
is itself righteous activity.
it is self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's
acts
heart,
as the best wishing friend,
acts as the best vision,
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing
and
of him.
purifies his body, constantly engaged in hearing him.
Nasta prayesu abhadresu
Nastaprayesha Bhadreshu,
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Se,
bhagavati uttamasloke
Bhagavati Uttamasloke,
bhaktir bhavati naistiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiti.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, devotee naturally develops dormant transcendental knowledge.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the devotees,
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava,
Dharajastamo bhava,
kamalobhadayasche,
Kamalobha
cheta
dayasche,
etaranavidam,
Chaitaitiranavidam,
stipam sattve prasidati.
Sitam sabbe prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional service,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion or
and
ignorance.
thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
And thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasanna manaso,
Evam prasanamana
bhagavat bhakti yogata,
Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata
bhagavat tattva vijnanam,
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana
mukta sangasya jayate.
Mukta Sangha Jayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness.
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure
Becomes
goodness.
enlivened by devotional service
Becomes enlivened by devotional service
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Yatirudaya Granti
chidyante sarva samsaya,
Yante Sarva Samshaya
siyante cha shikarmani,
Yante Sakaman
drista evat manishvare.
Druta Ivanmanishvari.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
That's the Bhakti Yoga serves the heart of the material
and
affection
enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayon samadharma,
and enables one to come at once to the stage of Samsham Samagramam,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth personality Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees, the Krishna consciousness,
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Shri Shri Guru Vastika prayers. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it.
The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it.
So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
For my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master,
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master,
who is an ocean of auspicious qualities,
who is an ocean of auspicious qualities,
chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy,
chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy,
singing and playing musical instruments.
singing and playing musical
The
instruments.
spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan moment of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
Sometimes his bodily hair stand on
He
end.
feels quivering in his body,
He feels quivering in his
and
body,
tears flow from his eyes like waves.
and tears flow from his eyes like
I offer my
waves.
respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Sri Sri Radha and
The
Govinda.
spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna.
I'm sorry, and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship.
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
clean their temple,
clean their temple,
and perform similar worship of the Lord.
and perform other similar worship of the
I
Lord.
offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The spiritual
master.
master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food,
The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
analyzed as that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked.
Analyze that which is licked, chewed, drank, and sucked.
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasad,
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad
he
Prasad,
is satisfied.
he is
I
satisfied.
offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava.
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Shri Radha and Madhava,
And their qualities, names, and forms.
and about their qualities, names, and
The
forms.
spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis,
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis,
who at different times make different tastes or arrangements.
who at different times make different tasteful
for the
arrangements
perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs
for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs
within the groves of Vrindavan.
within the groves of Vrindavan.
Therefore, I most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my most humble obeisance unto the Lotus feet of such a
The
spiritual
spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord,
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as Supreme Lord
because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
because he's the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures
and followed by all
and
authorities.
followed by the all authorities.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master,
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet of such a
who
spiritual
is a bona
master
fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna.
who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make it spiritual.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master.
At least 3 times today, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet of my spiritual master.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text 22. Prachoditayena pura saraswati Vitanuvatas tajasya satim smritim hridi Swalakshana padurabhut kilasyata Same Rishinam Rishabha Prasiddhatam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. May the Lord, who is the beginning of the creation, may the Lord, who in the beginning of the creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and of his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, be pleased with me. Okay, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. As we have already discussed herein before, the Lord, as the super soul of all living beings, from Brahma to the insignificant ant, endows all with the required knowledge potent in every living being. A living being is sufficiently potent to possess knowledge from the Lord in the proportion of 50/64ths, or 78% of the full knowledge acquirable. Since the living being is constitutionally part and parcel of the Lord, he is unable to assimilate all the knowledge that the Lord possesses himself. In the conditioned state, the living being is subject to forget everything after a change of body known as death. This potent knowledge is again inspired by the Lord Krishna, by the Lord from within the heart of every living being, and it is known as the awakening of knowledge, for it is comparable to awakening from sleep or unconsciousness. Thus, awakening of knowledge is under the full control of the Lord, and therefore we find in the practical world different grades of knowledge in different persons. This awakening of knowledge is neither an automatic nor a material interaction. The supply source is the Lord himself, Diyampati, for even Brahma is also subject to this regulation of the Supreme Creator. In the beginning of the creation, Brahma is born first without any father and mother, because before Brahma there were no other living beings. Brahma is born from the lotus which grows from the abdomen of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and therefore he is known as Aja. This Brahma, or Aja, is also a living being, part and parcel of the Lord, but being the most pious devotee of the Lord, Brahma is inspired by the Lord to create subsequent to the main creation by the Lord, through the agency of material nature. Therefore, neither the material nature nor Brahma is independent of the Lord. The material scientist can merely observe the reactions of the material nature without understanding the direction behind such activities, as a child can see the action of electricity without any knowledge of the powerhouse engineer. This imperfect knowledge of the material scientist is due to a poor fund of knowledge. The Vedic knowledge was therefore first impregnated within Brahma, and it appears that Brahma distributed the Vedic knowledge. Brahma is undoubtedly the speaker of the Vedic knowledge, but actually he was inspired by the Lord to receive such transcendental knowledge as it directly descends from the Lord. The Vedas are therefore called apaurushaya, or not inspired by any created being. Before the creation, the Lord was there, Narayana Parovyakta, and therefore the words spoken by the Lord are vibrations of transcendental sound. There is a gulf of difference between the two qualities of sound, namely prakrita and aprakrita. The physicist can deal only with the prakrita sound, or sound vibrated in the material sky, and therefore we must know that the Vedic sounds recorded in symbolic expressions cannot be understood by anyone within the universe unless and until one is inspired by the vibration of supernatural aprakrita sound, which descends in the chain of disciplic succession from the Lord to Brahma, from Brahma to Narada, and from Narada to Vyasa, and so on. No mundane scholar can translate or reveal the true import of the Vedic mantras or hymns. They cannot be understood unless one is inspired or initiated by the authorized spiritual master. The original spiritual master is the Lord himself, and the succession comes down through the sources of parampara, as clearly stated in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So unless one receives the transcendental knowledge from the authorized parampara, one should be considered useless, vifala mata, even though one may be greatly qualified in the mundane advancements of arts or science. Sukadeva Goswami is praying from the Lord by dint of being inspired from within by the Lord, so that he could rightly explain the facts and figures of creation as inquired by Maharaj Parikshit. A spiritual master is not a theoretical speculator like the mundane scholar, but is Shrotriyam Brahmanistam. He has heard the truth with faith. Shrotriyam Brahmanistam. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So the verse says, may the Lord, who in the beginning of the creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart, and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and of his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, be pleased with me. Okay, so there's a very important point yesterday, which is echoed again today, and that was from the last paragraph in yesterday's purport. And it says that therefore there's no difference of conclusions amongst the Vaishnava acharyas regarding the Lord and the devotees. Lord Chaitanya asserts that the living entity, Jiva, is eternally the servitor of the Lord, and that he is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. The tattva of Lord Chaitanya's is shared by all 4 sampradayas of the Vaishnava school, all accepting eternal servitude to the Lord even after salvation. And there is no authorized Vaishnava Acharya who may think of the Lord and himself as one. This humbleness of the pure devotee. Now the pure devotee never thinks like the Mayavadis, that they can become one with Krishna or equal with Krishna. They always accept the fact that they are subordinate to the Lord. So this humbleness of the pure devotee who is 100% engaged in his or Krishna's service, so that's another sign of humbleness, being 100% engaged in devotional service, not 90% or 50% or 20% or 1%, but 100%, puts the devotee of the Lord in trance by which to realize everything. Well, okay, what is a trance exactly? It means that your mind is focused completely on one point. So why don't you look it up and see what it says. This ability to be focused on Krishna completely. What was the first one? Dazed. D-A-Z-E-D. Okay. Yeah. There must be more definitions. Because it says here, yeah, what? No, okay, it's nonsense. That's it? Well, okay. The humbleness of the pure devotee who is 100% engaged in his service puts the devotee of the Lord in a trance by which to realize everything. So this use of the word trance in this context is different than those. It's not he's dazed. Dazed means like he's like, well, look up dazed. Let's see what dazed says. It could have a positive or a negative connotation, dazed. Yeah, right. Yeah. But that's not what's being said here. It says, puts the devotee of the Lord in a trance by which to realize everything. So this obviously this trance, what Prabhupada is using the word trance in the sense of is focused completely on Krishna. And because of that, just like Brahma, he was focused. If we read in the Brahma Samhita, right, when Brahma appears, he's a little bit confused because everything is in a state of chaos. In other words, material creation hasn't taken place yet, and he doesn't know, where he came from and what his purpose should be. Okay, so let's see where it says that. Brahma Samhita. The same Mahavishnu created Vishnu from his left limb, Brahma, the first progenitor of beings, from his right limb, and from the space between his two eyebrows, Sambhu, the divine masculine manifested halo. Okay. So, the divine Purusha, lying in the ocean of milk, the same who is the regulator of all individual souls, is Shri Vishnu, and Hiranya Garbha, the seminal principle, the portion of the Supreme Lord, is the prime progenitor, who is different from the four-faced Brahma. This Hiranyagarbha is the principle of seminal creating energy of every Brahman, belonging to each of the infinity of universes. The divine masculine manifested halo, Sambhu, is the plenary manifestation of his prototype, Sambhu, the same as the primary divine masculine generative symbol, Sambhu, whose nature has already been described. Vishnu is the integral subjective portion of Mahavishnu. Hence, he is the great lord of all other lords. The progenitor Brahma and Sambhu are the dislocated portions of Mahavishnu. Hence, they are gods with delegated functions. His own potency being on the left side of Godhead, Vishnu appears in the left limb of Mahavishnu from the unalloyed essence of his spiritual Chit potency. Vishnu, who is Godhead himself, is the inner guiding oversoul of every individual soul. He is the personality Godhead described in the Vedas as being of the measure of a thumb. He is the nourisher. The karmis, or elevationists, worship him as Narayana, the Lord of sacrifices, and the yogis desire to merge their identities in him as Paramatma by the process of the meditative trance. Okay. So then it talks about Shiva. Let's keep going. Okay. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions. But he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. Okay, this is the point. Brahma's impulse for creation arises solely from his previous impressions. All jivas get their nature conformably to their impressions of previous births, and accordingly their activity can have a beginning. It is called the unseen, or the result of one's previous deeds. His natural impulse is formed according to the nature of the deeds done by him in the previous kalpa. Some of the eligible jivas also attain to the office of Brahma in this way. Then the goddess of learning Saraswati, the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, said thus to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions. O Brahma, this mantra, meaning Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha, will assuredly fulfill your heart's desire. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes, the mantra, consisting of the 18 divine letters prefixed by the Kama Bija, is alone super excellent. It has a twofold aspect. One aspect is that it tends to make the pure soul run after all attractive Sri Krishna. So this is one of the lines of the Gayatri mantra that you get in second initiation. Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha. Running after soul, the pure soul runs after the all-attractive Sri Krishna, the Lord of Gokula, and the divine milkmaids. This is the acme, meaning the supreme top of the spiritual tendency of jivas. When the devotee is free from all sorts of mundane desires and willing to serve the Lord, he attains the fruition of his heart's desire, that is, love of Krishna. But in the case of the devotee who is not of unmixed aptitude, this super excellent mantra fulfills his heart's desire also. That's why when one advances in chanting Hare Krishna and being engaged in devotional service, they can receive the Gayatri mantra that should be recited 3 times a day, and that leads us into higher transcendental state of consciousness, so that we can begin to understand more intimately our relationship with Krishna. But in the case of the devotee who is not of unmixed aptitude, this super excellent mantra fulfills his heart's desire also. The transcendental Kama Bija is inherent in the divine Logos located in Goloka. Well, when it says divine Logos, that means the divine place of Krishna's like presence. And that's attained through the sound vibration. So logos is a Greek word. Once you look it up, Logos. It has different meanings. It can mean the spoken word of God. It can mean also, I think, the place where God exists.
The word of God, principle of divine reason and creative order, identified as John.
Yeah, see, that's the Christian definition of it. You have to go back further to the original Greek understanding of the word, and then we can begin to understand why Prabhupada uses that word. Does it give the Greek definition? You have to look up the etymological definition of the word. Etymological. Huh? Reason. Yeah, that's the medieval understanding of it. Okay, anyway. The divine logos, the transcendental Kama Bija is inherent in the divine logos located in Goloka. Okay, so it's connecting the Kama Bija mantra. Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Krishna or Govinda, who is very dear, or who is most dear to the gopis. Okay. So this is the Kama Bija. This is the seed of transcendental, let's say, ecstasy of Krishna's conjugal relationship with the gopis. Inherent in the divine logos, so located in Goloka. This is where all this relationship is taking place. So divine logos, in this sense, is the transcendental exchanges that are taking place with the Krishna and the gopis in the spiritual world. And the Kama Bija, the seed of in the spiritual world of transcendental ecstasy, is pervertedly reflected in the worldly affairs. Satisfies all sorts of desires of the mundane world. So people have the perverted reflection of the spiritual Kama Bija in the material world, and they're trying to satisfy their desires for sense gratification in the mundane world. Whereas in the spiritual world, it's always unsatiated. In other words, it can never be fully. In other words, they're always expanding the loving relationships, and whereas in the material world, people have these petty desires for sense gratification, and that's a perverted reflection of the original spiritual Kama Bija. Okay. So, O Brahma, so Saraswati is telling Brahma, O Brahma, do thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra. Then all your desires will be fulfilled. So, all your spiritual desires will be fulfilled by Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha. So what does it mean? Vallabhaya means to the dear one. So, and the dear one of the gopis. is Govinda, or Krishna. So, its purport is clear, Prabhupada says. In other words, all your spiritual desires will be satisfied, Brahma, by chanting this mantra. Okay? And then it says, Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural arts for Krishna in Goloka, Lord of Svetadvipa, for a long time. So what does it mean? Practice this cultural arts. We'll see that in the purport. And then it says, there exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments, in the transcendental land of Goloka. In its whorl, or in the core heart of this lotus, there exists a great divine throne on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of the transcendental bliss, playing on his divine flute, resonant with the divine sound, with his lotus mouth. He is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids with their respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy, who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. And in the purport, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, although the object of meditation is fully transcendental, yet owing to her nature, which is permeated with the quality of active mundane hankering, Maya, the non-spiritual potency of Krishna, embodying the principles of mixed sattva, rajas, and tamas in the forms of Durga and other non-spiritual powers, meditated on the Supreme Lord Krishna as the object of their worship. So long as there is any trace of mundane desire in one's heart, it is the object of worship of Maya Devi, or Durga, who has to be worshipped by such a person. Nonetheless, the fulfillment of one's heart's desire results from the worship of the object of worship of Maya Devi, and not from the worship of Maya Devi herself. So Maya Devi is worshiping Krishna, right? So it's you don't attain your ultimate desires by worshiping Maya Devi. You attain it by worshiping who Maya Devi is worshiping, and not from the worship of Maya Devi herself. This is in accordance with the sloka akama sarvakamova moksakama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajita purusham param. So we went over that verse. That's in this fourth chapter. And some which one? 411. Yes. No. 410. No. 4. Oh, it was in the purport. Okay. Oh, Bhagavad Gita. No, but the verse itself is in this fourth chapter.
So that's 2, 3 times.
Oh, 3. Okay. 2, 3, 10. Let's see that. Yes. Okay. So he says here, the meaning of this sloka of the Bhagavatam is that though other gods, as distinct manifestations of the Supreme Lord, are bestowers of sundry or different specific boons or blessings, yet a sensible person should worship the all-powerful Supreme Lord, giver of all good, with unalloyed devotion, without worshiping those mundane gift-giving deities. Accordingly, Brahma meditated upon Krishna in Goloka, the object of the worship from a distance of Maya Devi. True devotion is unalloyed devotional activity free from all mundane desire. The devotion of Brahma, etc., is not unmixed, meaning it is mixed devotion. But there is a stage of unmixed predilection. Predilection means tendency or a type of preference, even in devotion for the attainment of one's selfish desire. Wow, that's an amazing statement. This has been fully described in the concluding 5 slokas of this work, of this 5th chapter of Brahma Samhita. That is the easiest method of divine service prior to the attainment of self-realization by fallen souls. Okay, so I won't read any more. It goes on about Brahma, and then it begins Chintamani Prakara Sadmasu. This is what Brahma is actually seeing through this deep meditation by repeating this transcendental Gayatri mantra. Kim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijano Vallabhaya Swaha. So that's the key to entrance into Goloka. And then there's another mantra after that we say as part of the Gayatri mantra. Okay, anyway. So that verse, 2.3.10 says, a person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the Personality of Godhead. So it doesn't matter what your position is. You might be full of material desires. You may not have any material desires at all, or you may be looking for liberation. You should still worship Krishna. That's what's being said. And in the purport, it explains the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is described in the Bhagavad Gita as Purushottama, or the Supreme Personality. It is He only who can award liberation to the impersonalists by absorbing such aspirants in the Brahma Jyoti, the bodily rays of the Lord. The Brahma Jyoti is not separate from the Lord, as the glowing sun ray is also not independent. In other words, Krishna is the fountainhead of everything, and then it says, Bhakti Yoga is especially stressed here as the means of all perfection. In the previous chapters, it has been stated that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of both Karma and Jnana Yoga. And in the same way, in this chapter, it is emphatically declared that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of the different varieties of worship of the different demigods. Bhakti Yoga, thus, being the supreme means of self-realization, is recommended here. Everyone must therefore seriously take up the methods of Bhakti Yoga, even though one aspires for material enjoyment or liberation from material bondage. Okay, so we see the importance of the Kama Bij mantra and its relationship to this verse of 2.3.10. So then, to finish that, it says, accordingly, Brahma meditated upon Krishna and Goloka, the object of the worship, from a distance of Maya Devi. The true devotion is unalloyed devotional activity free from all mundane desire. The devotion of Brahma, etc., is not unmixed devotion, but there is a stage of unmixed predilection, even in devotion for the attainment of one's selfish desire. This has been fully described in the concluding 5 slokas of this work. That is the easiest method of divine service prior to the attainment of self-realization by fallen souls. So, in other words, if we're the most fallen person, if we take the devotional service under the guidance of bona fide spiritual masters, we can become purified. And even in the unpure stage, we can taste what it's like to be transcendentally situated. We get a glimpse of it, right? And that's an inspiration for us to go further. So those last 5 verses of the Brahma Samhita, let's take a quick look at them. So it says, the highest devotion is attained by slow degrees, by the method of constant endeavor for self-realization, with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. And then it says, These preliminary practices of devotion, sadhana bhakti, are conducive to the realization of loving devotion. Loving devotion, than whom there is no superior well-being, who goes hand in hand with the attainment of the exclusive state of supreme bliss, and who can lead to myself. Now he's talking about this sadhana bhakti. That's what we're doing now. You can't jump right away to raganuga bhakti. You have to slowly go through the process of sadhana bhakti. But even in sadhana bhakti, you begin to taste transcendental ecstasies. The jiva soul has no better well-being than loving devotion. In this is realized the final beatitude of jivas. The lotus feet of Krishna are attainable only by loving devotion. He who cultivates the preliminary devotional activities, anxiously keeping in view that realized state of devotion, can alone attain to that object of all endeavor. None else can have the same. So what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is saying, you cultivate the preliminary devotional activities, meaning sadhana bhakti, following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. But you anxiously keep in view that realized state of devotion. In other words, but you keep your focus on the goal of all this practice, sadhana. But that is pure love for Krishna, or raganuga. So, keeping in view that realized state of devotion can alone attain to that object of all endeavor. None else can have the same. So you have to have your eyes on the goal, even though you're in the preliminary stages, or we're in the preliminary stages. And then it says, abandoning all meritorious performances, meaning all performances with a desire to enjoy, right, materially. He says, abandoning all meritorious performances, serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. The people of the world act ceaselessly in pursuance of some ideal. By meditating on me, by means of those deeds, one will obtain devotion characterized by love in the shape of the supreme service. So, just like people are working so hard to attain something desirable in the material world, ultimately for sense gratification, Krishna is saying, but if you meditate on me in the same way, with the same zeal and same effort and same energy, then the same activities that you're performing for the material goal, aimed at pleasing Krishna, you'll obtain devotion characterized by love in the shape of the supreme service. And then the last verse, what's it say? Listen, O Vidhi, I am the seed, that is, the fundamental principle of this world of animate and inanimate objects. I am Pradhana, the substance of matter. I am Prakriti, the material cause. And I am Purusha, the efficient cause. This fiery energy that belongs specifically to the Brahman that inheres in you has also been conferred to me. It is by hearing this fiery energy that you regulate this phenomenal world of animate and inanimate objects. Okay, that's the last verse. That's the last 5 verses, which gives us a hint of what we're aiming for. We're aiming for pure devotion to Krishna. Okay, so I'll stop right there. I still didn't cover everything I wanted, but we went a little further. So the main point we were talking about today was in the previous purport, in verse 19, it says, the humbleness of the pure devotee, who is 100% engaged in Krishna's service, puts the devotee of the Lord in a trance by which to realize everything, because to the sincere devotee of the Lord reveals himself as stated in Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tenisam satayutanam bhajtam pratipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam. Yena mam upayantite. I reveal this knowledge, just like he's revealing it to Brahma, right? He'll do it to us also, because if we get engaged fully in devotional service, and he reveals to the proportionately to our surrender to him. Okay, we'll stop right there. Where's
It's
this?
the word trance is what we call samadhi.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But he used the word trance, but it does mean fully focused on Krishna.
Is it samadhi? This is called
Yeah,
samadhi.
yeah.
And I think it's mentioned somewhere in the instruction, the different level, chanting, remembering, and then it goes samadhi. That's the last, where you get full realization of everything.
Yeah,
Samadhi.
it's definitely not a dazed state.
Full absorption.
Yeah.
Body, mind. There is another meaning behind
Oh, go ahead.
samadhi, similar to samadhi, a state of being so deeply absorbed
Yeah, you read that earlier on. Yeah.
in thought about something as to be unaware of anything else.
That's it.
This is samadhi.
So where did you find that?
This is kid's definition of trance.
Kids?
Kid's definition of trance.
KID, yes?
Yeah, kids.
Okay.
I think you read the similar thing, no?
I think that, I'm not sure, but I think that's the original Greek understanding of the word also. And obviously the Greeks are influenced by the Vedas tremendously. You know.
The definition that I kind of talked about, complete absorption where no external stimuli can disturb you.
Interfere, yeah. Yeah, good. Haribol. That's the real meaning. So I didn't cover everything I wanted about the purport today, so we'll do that.
Which verses in
Well, I was reading it is begins 5:25 and 26 especially, and then the last 5 verses of the Brahma Samhita. So I went from 5:25 and 5. No, I started at 5:23, 24, 25, and 26. And then I went to the last 5 verses of the Brahma Samhita. Okay. Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We're going to go over this text 22 again tomorrow, because I didn't get to it. Because I missed some things from yesterday. That's why. So over and over again, Prabhupada saying, even in the beginning stages of Krishna consciousness, you get a glimpse of what the goal is, pure, unalloyed devotion, and you begin to feel a little bit of the ecstasy through chanting and hearing on a regular basis, so that you're, even though you're in the beginning stage, still you're focused on what the goal is. Like in my life, you stop that. There's always nothing.